I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 89, printed in Part A of House Report number 118-261, offered by Mr. Fulcher of Idaho.
Pursuant to House Resolution 838, the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Fulcher, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to my seatmate, Congressman Simpson, for his overall work on this larger appropriations package. It's not a simple thing to do right now. My amendment will restrict funds to implement Section 216 of Executive Order 14008, which aims to supposedly conserve 30% of our nation's lands and waters by 2030. Over the last 2 years, my colleagues and I on the Natural Resources Committee have introduced legislation to reverse President Biden's land grab and environmental extremism through this 30 by 30 initiative. My constituents in Idaho are tired of interference and overreach by the federal government as it tries to place more use mandates on land. 63% of Idaho's land mass is federally controlled. If it's truly the goal of this administration to increase federally controlled land by another 30%, in that case, states in the West, Idaho included, already disproportionately share in the economic distress associated with this federally controlled land. If the lands in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Maine, and other north or eastern states were locked up by federally run bureaucracies like those in the West, I'm sure more of my colleagues from those states would share the same desire that I have to restrict further expansion on the federal government's land footprint. In addition, there's a direct correlation between the percentage of federal land mass with increased budget costs. As we continue to face record-breaking deficits, debt, and debt financing, we certainly don't need to expand our cost centers. With that, Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and stop this land grab effort through this 30 by 30 initiative by the federal government. And I yield.
Gentleman yields. Gentlelady from Maine, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
I seek time in opposition.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I claim time in opposition to this amendment. We oppose this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Idaho.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to put something in context.
Gentleman seek recognition?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman will reclaim his time.
I just want to point out that the amount of federally controlled lands is by nowhere equal across our country. In Idaho, it's 32.8 million acres. And to my good friend from Maine, it's 301,000. You can't possibly contemplate the ramifications that has when it comes to local governance and land management for your entire state. So when it comes to federally controlled land, enough is enough. Our federal resources are overwhelmed, and they're not in a good position to manage this land mass, and so oftentimes they don't. And more federal use mandates reduce our overall wise land management.